when you look at customers are changing, we know and hear a lot about that. Everyone does, right? And COVID accelerated that, or may have been, made it more challenging. Mm-hmm. Having the right technology mix is very important to give brands the agility to execute customer experience, customer loyalty programs, that are relevant, that are engaging. How important is it to get that right technology mix right? I mean, should you go with enterprise players? Should you look for someone like yourself who does great in certain facets of the customer loyalty journey, the customer experience journey, the customer journey? How difficult and how important is it to get that technology decision right?
Yeah, that's something, Mark, that I'm very passionate about. Definitely, it's critically important, but we always would make the argument that it's important for the brand to land their strategy first.
Yeah.
And then backfill, if you will, or then look at what are the enabling technologies, what in my MarTech stack can bring to life that strategy. What we don't advocate for, and even though we've got great technology and a lot of companies have different technologies that do some fabulous things, we don't advocate for brands to go out and buy a bunch of different technologies and then figure out, okay, with these technologies I have, what kind of strategies can I embark upon? How do I actually execute and drive my business forward? So, our advice and our counsel is MarTech stack, thinking about how you bring this all together technically, allowing that data to flow both as you collect it and observe it, and then also how you want to leverage it and create again back to your consumer those experiences, those interactions at those touch points. It's all critically important, but you have to land your strategy first. And so we would just say sequentially, make sure you have a good grounding and foundation of strategy. And then critically important, look at the MarTech stack, look at the enabling technologies.
I think there's sort of two challenges that happen in the scenario you laid out. The first one is sort of aligning on a strategy on how technology is going to enable them to achieve those goals that they have set out in terms of, creating, connection with their customer and leveraging that to drive incrementality and value. And obviously the outcome being sort of long-term customer loyalty. Once they align on how technology is going to play a piece there, I think the second piece is a little tougher, which is, we can't rip everything out today and be live tomorrow. So, what we've seen a lot of people do, and I think it's been a very successful approach, which is to say, let's start with the first and most important thing, which is we need to get technology in place that allows us to get to know as many of our customers as possible and activate them in a positive and incremental way for our business. And then over time, we can add in other pieces of that technology that are going to expand, the way we engage with them across loyalty, across digital commerce, and across a variety of frictionless experiences. So, whether it's Murphy USA, who's had a very successful program launching, with phone number only as the main engagement channel at in-store and at the pump, and using that to build a robust membership, a membership over time. Or, going back to the Sefco example where you have them opting to start first with loyalty and then, adding payments and digital commerce later this year. I think at the end of the day, picking a technology provider that allows you to set the foundation for what you can do and continually build on top of that and drive incremental outcomes along the way is really what we've seen people have a lot of success with.
You probably know at Baesman, we're big advocates for technology supporting marketing. If your technology is your roadblock, then you won't be successful in your personalization testing and rollout. With the demands of the customer, personalization is becoming an expectation. It's time to make sure that your technology is supporting your needs. We know that technology really needs to be driven by those marketing and strategies. We need to be able to implement those things. Technology can't handcuff us to the strategies of the past anymore. This year is about flexibility, season optimization. It's really unpredictable. So we need to make sure that we're able to move quickly.
This is, if brands weren't hyper-focused on their MarTech stack or digital stacks before, they are now. And though, though I'm a tech girl through and through, I have long held the belief that it's actually not about the technology, it's about the experience the technology enables. Earlier, we spoke about the need to have flexible and a unified approach to data. And that builds a solid but flexible foundation. And that foundation gives marketers the ability to respond to whatever the needs of the customers are creatively with the tech and platforms that set up those experiences. I think it goes back to this idea of responsiveness before creativity. All brands that I know of and that I read about and that I work with are in various stages of architecting, optimizing their data and their digital tech stacks. And the goal of that is to be able to make smart decisions over time. The mix, I think, will look different for different companies, but the key theme is ultimately to gather the spectrum of data, make it usable and actionable, there's your foundation, and then allow it to power different technologies that deliver those awesome experiences to drive the intended consumer behavior.
Okay.
And if you're too swayed by one approach, or you're too connected to one approach over another, or a specific technology over another, you lose the benefit that can come from the flexibility that a strong, clear data architecture allows you. Then you can bring in the different technologies over time.
It's very important. Jobs you may rely on getting it right. And I think that's why, people sometimes will choose the safe enterprise route, even though it's more expensive. Maybe it's not as flexible, but it's kind of like the old saying, no one gets fired from buying IBM. Back when IBM ruled everything and was more expensive and less, not as flexible as the new upstarts. So with that said, the beautiful thing is there are so many different options out there. The different providers, different service options, whether it's SaaS or it's full service. There are options for brands to choose from, and it's just a matter of going through the process, doing the due diligence, and then selecting someone. And I would just say, it's not just about the technology, it's about the people who come along with the technology and the connection between companies, the companies that have a similar mindset, companies that, a service provider who can embrace the culture of the brand and be a part of the brand, a part of the brand's team, and not be a vendor, because that relationship sucks.
Yes, it's a very, very good question. So in terms of, first of all, I think that your spotlight on agility is right on, because a lot of times what we see is that just getting a single tool like our platform, RCX, or even like something like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Responses, any of those tools that are out there in the marketing technology stack, just getting one tool or a couple of tools out there and thinking that, okay, this is really going to change the equation is not always the case. And a lot of times people get a little disappointed. And I think the reality, and this is something that we always start out when we try to implement our platform, we come with a map, like a technology stack map that we see it, that starts at the channels and sort of goes through the transactional systems into the data management systems like cleansing and making sure everything's fine, then going all the way up to data warehousing and sort of big data systems and that kind of stuff, and then coming back down. So if you look at this enterprise, we call it the enterprise footprint, the CX machine that you have, it has many components, and each one of them is a different part of the marketing technology stack. And so one of the big things that I think is important when you adopt any new platform, whether it's a loyalty platform or a marketing cloud platform or some other thing in between, like a referral platform, there's lots of different pieces of the marketing stack now that you can buy separately. The big thing about any of these things is to have this big picture in your head of how the conversation flows from the consumers, which are at your channels, essentially at the bottom, and how the conversation escalates all the way up to your analytical systems that are at the top, whether they're real time, near real time, or even batch, and then how that conversation flows back through all the systems that are in the stack. So I think having that comprehensive framework in mind.
Right.
And again, we offer such a model every time we go in, because we want to also understand when you walk into an enterprise, a lot of times they already have a lot of the pieces. So you just want to arrange them in a nice model that kind of gives you that ability to orchestrate the conversation in a meaningful way. So as I said, marketing tools are immensely powerful these days, and it's really great what we have in the ecosystem. It's just that, it could get very confusing, especially in large enterprises, with lots of teams and lots of politics in between and lots of things that are happening, that eventually these platforms becomes less effective if there's no guiding strategy of how the entire stack would work together to deliver this conversation. People lose focus that actually I'm trying to make a good conversation, a relevant dialogue with my customers, and they start to obsess over platforms and draw boundaries around them and all kinds of things. So that's where I think I would say that is the number one priority that I set for any project we get into, is to make sure that picture is very clear before we start focusing on individual boxes in that model.